Live. Hello, everyone. You may have thought that you weren't going to see us this week, but here we are. We decided to continue the streak. We had to do it. This is a special Awesemo.com PGA show. I guess we could still call it that, but it's a Euro edition.
Yeah, it's the Euro edition.
Yeah, we got a week off because it's the Zurich Classic over here, which is team play, and DraftKings does not run anything. But that doesn't stop us because we have the Trophee Hassan 2. That's what we're going with here. Great trophy, interesting field. Obviously, this is in Euro, so it's going to be some different guys discuss, different format and whatnot. But we're here, so let's do it. Are you excited for a break to play a little Euro? I kind of am, not going to lie.
Yeah, so I think the first thing is this is probably, I know this is our live before lock show, and I'll say that this is probably as live before lock that we're going to get. We'll get one more time at obviously the Open Championship, where it's going to be, the biggest tournament or the last big tournament of the year that we're going to get, and we're going to get the 1 o'clock the 1 o'clock a.m. for Eastern Standard Time when Ben and I are. That'll be the lock time. We're going to get a 2:35 a.m. lock time today. And yeah, the thing is, they put out a 20K to first place. And then I looked at the field and I kind of liked it. I like these Challenge Tour guys that have been playing over here in America in college that I've been following for a couple of years, that have, started to kind of find their way. I like watching the web.com tour guys come up to the PGA Tour kind of the same way. So fun field, good enough event. The coverage is pretty good. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. So everything kind of lined up. And for me, waking up on Sunday, and again, this is an Eastern Standard Time, waking up on Sunday and watching 2.5 hours of golf and having 5 figures, obviously the Open Championship is 6 figures, but 5 figures on the line is nice. And that's what we're going to get on Sunday. So I'm all for it. And the course is kind of hard. So it's going to be a fun week overall. A nice change of pace, because there's not that many guys that we can really focus on.
Yeah, so a couple things with Euro. Obviously, they don't have shot trackers. You don't know what's going on. Crazy numbers being posted.
Yep.
It's top 65 in ties to make the cut. So 6 of 6 is even more difficult.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, it does fluctuate, but I've seen many weeks in Euro where legitimately like 6 of 6 is like 1%.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. I don't think it affects building, but I like it too. I'm a morning person. There's nothing better than waking up. You got the final pairings, right in the thick of it, most likely when you wake up on the East Coast. So we're going to get into it. This is the tournaments in Morocco. You mentioned it. We'll talk real quick about the course. Par 72, it's long, 75, 7,600 yards, tree lined. So it's going to be a challenge. We've seen in recent years, the winner, hovers around 10 under, I guess. Barring some crazy weather. So that's no picnic. And I expect scores to kind of be similar to what we've seen.
Yeah, for sure. And we can certainly dive into the field, the course a little bit more. And interesting enough, it's a Robert Trent Jones design. And the reason I bring that up is the web.com just had it was the Robert Trent Jones Golf Classic, where, he's notorious for building that long stretch in Alabama and up through that part of the country. And personally, as a golfer, I would love to go and have a golf junket on that someday. So obviously the designer is well known over here, so we do know kind of the style of golf course that it is. It's rather long, as we talked about, but it gets the length in the par threes. It really doesn't get it in the par fours. That's why you still see scores in the double digits normally, like you mentioned, under par, because of course the par fours are still relatively shorter. Again, I think it's played as a par 73 for, when you and I go play it. I don't know if they're going to play it that way. They have 3 par 5s on the back 9. I still think it's played that way. I've seen it done both, so it's all about the way they set up their tees and stuff. Have you seen anything? Do you see it as a 72 that they're going to play it, or have you seen any notes?
I haven't. That's what I'm assuming. It is here. It's not as much information as we normally see, obviously.
Yeah, that's why something like that is even hard for us.
Wind finders trying to find wherever they are in
Rabat, Morocco, right? And also when we talk about names tonight, candidly, we are going to butcher some, or at least I definitely am. So
this is a creative player edition of the show, so we're gonna be winging it. Obviously,
I love it.
And that's what I like about Euro. We're about to dive into it. We've got some guys that we're going to see. People now, Lucas Bjerregaard, he's a household name almost. a couple years ago, he's the type of guy in this field that you can kind of uncover. There will be players in a couple years that are going to be mainstreams on the PGA Tour that are playing this week. And then you mentioned there's some guys that are, that next wave of even Euros, that Challenge Tour, which is their web.com tour, that maybe can make a splash in a field like this. And I like that. It's always fun to see the next generation, the next wave.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just looking to see if they have it on their website. I don't see it right now, but I think we can probably assume it's going to be played at a 72, even though, like I said, it can be set up as a 73. Anyways, I'll find that as we go on the show. So 7,600 yards, still relatively long. Again, it's the par threes. Even though the par fives, though, the shortest one is 562 yards. So really, really pretty lengthy there. That's why I did focus on driving distance this week a little bit as a differentiator. If I was in that fifth lineup and I was down to two guys, I would pick a guy that was driving distance a little bit better. I just think that it's going to give them the opportunity to grind out a tougher score. Each of the cuts of the last few years has been well over par. So you got to expect a grinded out round. So, kind of keep that in mind as we go along. So how we're going to kind of structure it, because obviously, like we said, this is all about intensive research. How much research you want to put in is what you'll get out of Euro. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about 12 plays each. We won't double up, so we'll talk about just about 24 golfers, which should give everybody a good enough field. If you weren't able to reserve some contest, DraftKings did put out some smaller secondary ones, and I think those are still available. So we'll start off right at the top. Probably the most household name is the highest priced guy on DraftKings this week. I'm talking about the Juice is Loose, Juice Loughton. He's played a couple of events over here. Got some great course history. Found it a little difficult to build five guys around him. There are a bunch of guys in the sevens that I liked, but I just found myself going more towards a balanced build. Although Juice was I'm going to call him Juice because I just like that name.
Yeah, and that's what we do on the show.
Most people go by that over here. Anyways, he's my favorite over 10K this week. I just think you're paying way too much for Jordan Smith and Jorge Campillo. I know Alvira's got the course history here, but it just seems like Juice is the best setup. How about you? Do you have a different take up top, or you lean in towards him as well?
Pretty similar. I think he's the safest guy out there, but he's the highest priced guy, and 11.5 is no picnic. So I made enough lineups where I have some exposure. I like him. He's played well, certainly in Europe for a long time. He came over here and he was fine. The game is in good shape. He's not the longest hitter, but he's very solid. He can gain strokes off the tee regardless, just because he's very accurate, good with the irons. And like you said, he's played this course before, and he's shown that he can easily handle that. So the only thing that's the detriment is your other five spots are sacrificed when you're starting at 11.5. For me, he would be the guy, or I'd take the full discount in terms of 10K plus options. Andy Sullivan is just a guy who he's certainly talented. The consistency not always there, but you're getting $1,400 difference. So if he can putt, that's always kind of his Achilles heel. Tee to green, he's one of the better players in this field. So those are the options. Obviously, just like normal DFS, that these guys are all the better talented guys in this field. But that's kind of how I structure them.
Yeah, Andy Sullivan actually helped contribute to a $1 million winning lineup at the Open Championship a couple of years ago, kind of snuck into the cut, and only ended up scoring like 48 points, but it was good enough for that $6,100 salary to pay off. So
there you go.
Yeah, sure enough. Anyway, so I think it seems like we're kind of leaning, and we'll try not to do that the whole way through here, but up top, it just kind of plays out that way that, Juice is obviously a little bit of class step up above the other guys. And as far as salary goes, you go down to Andy Sullivan from Jordan Smith, and you're getting a similar type of upside. So I think that's kind of why we get there. Also, just a quick note on ownership. Very little people project out ownership because the fields the contest prizes are normally so small, so it's hard to gauge ownership. It's very chalky. We'll talk about a guy next because he's in the next price range, Julian Surrey. He's a guy at 9.1 that most people that play DFS golf do know him by now. He almost got his PGA Tour card last year, just fell short and fell short in the web finals. But he's a guy that could get to like 35 or 40% owned very, very quickly. And that's just what happens in Europe. We don't worry too much about ownership in Europe. It's just all about getting 6 of 6, because if you can do that, you're normally way a step above the field. So let's start the 9Ks off. My top 2 picks are going to be in the 9K range, are going to be Surrey and Van Rooyen, sorry. I know that Levy's the defending champ. He also was on a really bad draw in the Oman Open and ended up withdrawing from that. So his recent form, we don't really have much. But I just think that over this year, it looks like Surrey and Van Rooyen seem to be in a little bit better form than Levy. How about you?
Yeah, EVR obviously is a guy that, he's gotten in some majors and certainly played in some tougher fields, WGCs. So I'm with you there. I'm gonna throw another guy who, I don't know why I always end up with this guy, Fabrizio Zanotti, 9,300. Another one, putting really is the Achilles heel. If he can make some putts, I feel pretty good about him playing well. Tee to green, in good shape, good ball striker. We don't see him a ton, if ever, really, on stateside, but he's a quality Euro player. And 9,300, I don't, as you said, ownership is very difficult to project, but I'd be pretty stunned if he's popular. Seems just like a pretty standard play for most people, but he's a guy that I have a feeling, I know I'm certainly going to be overweight on. I think if he can make some putts, he's someone that could really be a key piece of my lineups.
Yeah, in this week as part of the premium content, I put in all the strokes gained metrics. The European Tour started doing that last year. And so I put the field ranks just because if I didn't put the field ranks, it would probably be a relatively high numbers. Obviously when we have Tom Lewis as the lowest official world golf ranked player in the field, we're going to struggle a little bit for stats. So speaking of Zanotti, 3rd in the field in tee to green, 5th in around the green, 6th in approach, 11th in off the tee. So statistically should set up pretty well, coming in off pretty good form too. So don't mind that pick. The other 2 guys above 9K and below 10K, so in the 9K range, Dubuisson and Christian Benzahuten. I think that's probably actually not bad. I'm actually pretty.
That's better than I was going to do. So
yeah, he was compared last year to just a guy like that could end up being like a Charles Howell of the European Tour that just makes a ton of cuts. He's doing it again this year. It looks like 4 straight top 35s on my board, made the cut both times here. Just seems like 9K might be a little too high priced. We've never seen this guy go out and win, and we want to see some win equity. And all the other guys above 9K we've seen go out and win. I'm almost positive on. Anyways, I can certainly back that up, or at least come in second. So I guess I'd be more inclined to go down to Paul Dunn here, which we've seen definitely have much more upside. But how about you for Dubuisson or Benzahuten? Probably a couple of shares, but overweight on either?
I don't think so. Honestly, Zanotti took, and this is kind of that, yeah, he took the bulk of that, and this is where obviously lineup construction comes into play. If you start with someone like Juice, you're probably not going to be able to get 2 of these guys. Maybe you might not even get 1. So that created some sort of a dead range on those lineups. And when I started more balanced, you mentioned Surrey, who for good reason is going to be a very popular play. Zanotti for me, and then we crack off that 8K range with Paul Dunn, who is a guy has had success in Europe, has had some success stateside, and I definitely am interested in him. There's no doubt that he feels underpriced in my mind.
Yeah, he does a little bit, and I don't know if he's going to be popular or not. He's working on 3 straight top 20s, 12th in the Puerto Rico Open a couple of weeks ago when he got invited over here. Excuse me, sorry. And I like to play him. This guy, he almost won the British Open as an amateur. I remember that. What a story it was. And he was supposed to be, the next Rory McIlroy coming out of Ireland. And it just hasn't quite lived up to it. He's a fantastic putter, great short game, and has sneaky long distance, which I love here. In a grinded out tournament in a long course, you want a guy that can hit it long and can grind it out around the green. So that's why I think you see a second place finish here in 2017. I'd have to check and see why he missed the cut here in 2018. I don't know what it was, if he was just not coming in great form. I know he was coming from Puerto Rico again, but weird.
Europe is tough. Honestly, those 5 spots do make a bigger difference than you think. It's just harder. Really it's harder to make cuts. Mm-hmm. The other thing, and we see this, most people see it once a year because, when you play the British Open, a lot of times one of the waves just gets murdered in Europe. The wins, especially if they're playing in actually Europe, it can be brutal. So a lot of guys have some odd, it's kind of like the players. I feel like every course over there, you're like, oh, he's got 3 top tens and 2 missed cuts. It's like, yeah, that's kind of what you get. So Paul Dunn, I'm with you though. It's hard not to like him in this spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we try not to worry about ownership too much in Euro. We're just trying to get 6 of 6 through. If we end up splitting a pot, we split a pot. That's how it happens. Next kind of list is a guy that I wanted to talk about because he's been so hot this year, but cooled off recently. A couple of missed cuts and a 41st in his last 3 appearances. I'm talking about Kurt Kitayama at 8,800. He's probably going to be popular because he's won a couple of times. He loves to make birdies. I mean, in this field, he's ranked in the top 10, 41 rounds. So he's got one of the most rounds, strokes gained measured of anybody on the entire tour. So we've got a pretty good picture of what he is. He's not that great with his irons. He's good off the tees and around the green. Mediocre at putting as well. So what do you make of this? It seems, I know he's gotten hot, and I know he won those couple of tournaments earlier, but it seems like maybe the run has happened, and it's a cool-off, almost kind of like what Cam Champ went through, but maybe not the Cam Champ extreme, obviously. That we kind of also saw coming. But Kitayama certainly was hot at the beginning of the season, and it hasn't kept up recently.
This is a really interesting part of kind of the salary range. This is where I feel like there's a ton of talent. Him, Thomas Detry, Alexander Bjork, those are guys that when I immediately saw the pricing, I was like, wow, this is. And then you look, and all 3 of them to me have certainly had spurts. Kitayama is probably the most polarizing because he broke through. The other 2, I mean, Bjork is a guy that I've played him in fields a lot tougher than this in WGCs and whatnot. And we've seen Detry start to emerge. He finally came over, and he wasn't bad, but this is a tough range for me. They each have a lot of things I like, but they also have some serious red flags. Detry, his driving accuracy is absolutely awful right now. I don't know what the problem is. He's got to fix that in a hurry would be probably my recommendation, just because this is tree lined. He can get himself into some trouble there. And then Bjork, he's a very good ball striker, likes this course, played really well here last year, but the recent form isn't great. So I think this little layoff can help him. I have no problem with him. He's probably my favorite of the 3.
Yeah, the thing about Bjork is that he really shot up the OWGR, and then
he did.
He's tailed off. I don't know if the travel over to here when he played in the WGCs struggled, but he really shot up, and he's tailed off a little bit. 8,500. If he was 8,500 at this point in this field last year, he'd be about 100% owned. I mean, that was when he was tore it through. I'm just looking at Kitayama because I think I made a little bit of a mistake. Yeah, I did. He actually won the Oman Open and missed 2 cuts, then won, and then has a 20th and a 41st after. So Kitayama is actually in a little bit better form than I first thought. I knew he had gotten cold for a little bit after his win. He's still hot and cold. That's what he is.
That's what more I was about to say. Yeah. I've seen him because, honestly, especially when tournaments that I'm not playing a ton of Euro, what I usually do is I wake up on Sunday and I catch the final round. So I've seen him play more than I thought I would this year. And, he's been there. There's no doubt he's obviously been impressive. But he's also had some really ugly showings there. And obviously it alleviates.
That's what Euro is, right?
Yeah, that's what Euro is. And GPP, there's no doubt the guy's got winning upside. I think that's a given. Yep. But if there are some other options, Paul Dunn is firmly ahead of him for me. It's not even close.
Yeah. So Detry is interesting. Again, it's tree lined and it's long. So I would love Bjerregaard to be in this field. I think it'd be perfect, but he doesn't need to be here. He's already got everything he needs. So you mentioned Bjork. Not a ton of interest in Mike LV there. Next guy I mentioned is Tom Lewis at the top. And he's the lowest world ranked player here. And I do like him here this week. His form has gotten a little bit better. He came over here. He didn't get out of group stage, but he played much better than I think people thought he was going to in the match play there. So I don't mind him here at 8,400, and Romain Longoski right below him too. Those are the next 2 guys that I'm focused on. I think they set up pretty well here. I don't think they're going to be as highly owned with many people going to Julian Siri at 9,100 and Kitayama and Dunn taking up a lot of ownership as well. Also seen a guy down at 8K, Mikko Krohonen talks about a lot this week. So I think that you may get a little bit of a discount in ownership with at least Romain Lengoski. So any thoughts on him or on Tom Lewis?
So Tom Lewis is definitely interesting. He's taken a step up in competition. We've seen him a little more, can really score when he putts. He's another one where tee to green, really solid. Putting, yeah, debatable. But guys like that, when they get going, and we've seen Tom Lewis a couple times in Europe get crazy hot. So I kind of actually like him more as a bet, whether it's a first round leader or even to win the tournament, because I do think he's very polarizing. But the miscut equity, I think actually the other guy you mentioned, who Lengosti, that's as good as it's going to be for me.
He's French, so I think it's a tough one. Yeah,
it's all deadly, but obviously we know where I'm going in this range, and it's to Maximilian Kieffer, who is my favorite golfer in Europe. It's not even close, the German, and he's had a really good stretch. He should have won when Kitayama won in Oman. He lost in the playoff. Not the longest hitter, but he's accurate, really good putter, really good scrambler, just can kind of do his thing. And I know the course is a little long, but that doesn't bother him. He's kind of one of those guys. He's in position mostly off the tee because he's very accurate. So he's 8,100. I feel pretty good about the game. It's cooled off a little, but at the same time, not going to be popular. And he's a guy that I certainly am going right back to.
Yeah, I mean, driving accuracy 16th on the year, greens and regulation 21st. So it's a guy that pounds fairways, pounds greens.
Yep.
Is he too short for this course? I mean, maybe, but again, if you don't need a ton of birdies, we talked about the cut being over par. So yeah, I don't think he sets up too terribly for this course, even though the driving distance you might want to see it a little bit more. But still, you probably have been following him a little bit more than me. One thing that really jumped out, and I know this guy has some decent finishes around, but and recently, but Benjamin, it's not Herbert because there's a Lucas. It's right. It's Lucas Herbert, right? It's
a Bear, maybe.
Hey Bear, also from France, I believe.
Yeah, he is.
He's 41-1 in this area, priced with guys that are 50 and 60. He was just lower than a lot of guys that are priced below him. Like Bajork, I see at 55. I see Lengoski at 66. So I just found that really interesting. I don't know about you. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, is he in your player pool because of that? Or, I mean, he's made all three cuts here. I see that. What's your thoughts on him, if any?
So he's a guy that if his recent form was a little better, I think he would be priced maybe even, certainly higher, and he could be up, kind of by Paul Dunn, because he's a quality player in Europe. We've seen him play well. It's tough. Even if you just game log look, you're going to see a bunch of miscuts and a bunch of pretty good showings, and that's what you're going to get. So as a GPP guy, I totally see it. For me, because obviously we can't play everyone, and I'm going to pass this guy right back to you. Yeah. Adri Arnas. I'll be honest, I didn't really know anything about this guy. The more I dug, the more I liked. I think he's going to be pretty popular, but is he someone that you're looking to as well?
Yeah, so young guy from Spain, and he is pretty tested though, because he went to Texas A&M, and so he played, he played against Spieth and Fratelli in college, and wasn't as good, but still played really well. He blew up last year on the Challenge Tour, which is the web.com of the European Tour. Blew up, had like 2 wins in 3 weeks, got promoted, and finally is finding his stride. On the European Tour. Tied for second in Kenya, tied for 14th in Qatar the week before. So he shot 80 at the Maybank in round 1. And so that basically put him out of the tournament. Still bounced back and shot 69 the next day. So obviously was able to bounce back, and that's really been his only bad form. But really rose through the ranks. I mean, this guy at the beginning of last year was ranked 509th in the world playing on that Challenge Tour, and is now all the way up to 116th. So obviously continuing to play better and move up the ranks. He's a fantastic ball striker. In this area, he's priced at 7,800, and he's ranked Excuse me, I've got to get back to my page here. I apologize. There he is. He's ranked 8th in the field in strokes gained tee to green, and he's the 25th salary player on the board. Sorry, I got that spot back. So as you can see, you're getting a pretty good discount for a guy that obviously has been playing quite well this year. He sucks at putting. You know, he's kind of like a Luke. He's kind of like a Luke List. I think it's the best way to describe it. He's kind of like a Luke. Yeah, he's kind of like the Luke List and Benny On of this tour. Although not as bad. He's only 139th on in the field, so you know that's not quite the worst. Where Luke List or Benny On would be the worst in this field. So yeah, I like him. He seems like he's in good form and he's hot. He's 7,800. I'm all about him. And then the next guy I want to talk about, and I'm skipping down to 7,500 for this guy, but it's the exact same premise. This guy's ranked 141st in this field in putting, but 12th in tee to green, and it's a American Sean Croker. I've been playing this guy for a couple of years because he was supposed to be the next guy that got onto the PGA Tour through the Brooks Koepka way, I'll call it. He was supposed to kind of be the new Brooks Koepka. Hasn't really panned out for him, obviously, quite yet, but he's still young. He's still only 25. Well, Chase Koepka was supposed to be the next Brooks Koepka, who we'll talk about at the end of the show.
Brooks is trying to drag his carcass across the finish line.
Oh, man. Did you see that Chase has been coming in top 10s at mini satellite events at the local course down the street from me recently. Now he's going to play in a PGA Tour event. Anyways, it's how it works, man. It's how professional golf ranks goes, I guess. He's got no status anywhere right now. He didn't make the top 125 on the European Tour last year. I guess he doesn't want to play on the Challenge Tour. I guess his brother doesn't want to fund him. I don't know. But still, so Sean Croker is a guy I do like him. He's found his game a little bit. He's working on some pretty good form, a couple of top 10s on the year as well. So had you looked at him? Had you heard his name yet?
I have not, to be honest. In that range, Callum Shinkwin took all my shares, and that's a guy I want to dig a little more. I'll be honest. I kind of probably overlooked him. You see 4 of 10 made cuts.
Yep.
Don't know a lot about him.
Yeah, so the four cuts that he's made, right? It's 5th, 9th, 18th, 12th. So he is really who's the guy on the PGA Tour?
Taylor Gooch.
Taylor Gooch. He is exactly like Taylor Gooch. Boom. That is so perfect that I can't even describe you. They're the same age. They probably weren't the same college. They're probably like the exact same player.
He might be the same person.
They could be because that is Taylor Gooch-like form. Miscuts surrounded by top 20s. So 7,500, I'm not going to tell you to play him in your cash lineup, but I'm going to tell you to play him in GPPs because he could certainly help you get across the finish line.
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead. I skipped a few areas. So
yeah, I just wanted, if you think, because I like this Arnest guy too, if you do think he's going to be popular, because a lot of people are going to see what we're seeing with him. Matthias Schwab is another super talented player. He's a Vandy product. Another guy who dominated the Challenge Tour and is now starting. I'm not saying he's dominating the Euro Tour, but he's starting to really consistently put it together. He is someone that I think in a couple of years is going to be over here, to be honest. He's got that type of pedigree.
Yeah, if you're playing that $10 duel for the dagger, and of course, if you guys don't know, it's the dagger is the trophy, as we talked about. It's great. It's probably one of the best in golf. In any case, he's a perfect pivot off of Arnu, or even stacking him with Arnu, because he's just going to be really highly owned, and Schwab will not be. The next guy that I think probably is highly owned because everyone's going to look at his stats, and he's ranked 2nd in the field in tee to green, and that's Jason Scrivener. And the guy has had a great year, don't get me wrong, but it's played a little bit maybe out of his range, or maybe he's just found it. For me, I like to kind of, at this price range, I don't mind with guessing on the ladder, saying, you know what, he's just finally found his stride on the pro circuit. Miscut was his first miscut of the year and first miscut since the last year's British Masters. So obviously he had found some really good consistency. Everything was in the top 10. So I really do like him. I know the miscut is a little concerning, but he's had plenty of time to recover. So was that a name you found yourself going to?
Certainly someone that came up when you kind of, no matter what you're looking at, because he's just played fantastic golf. And he's certainly accessible in the price point. I will say that I mostly got around him with either Schwab. I even have some Richard Stern shares. But my next guy, and then I'll kind of pass it right back to you. is actually going down a bit. It's Bradley Dredge, who's another one. I believe he's from Wales. I want to say he always has that cool flag. Good tee to green player. Lost it for a while there, and he seems to have found his form a bit. Playing some pretty consistent golf here, so he can handle this. Can attack the par fives. Another one, and kind of the theme for us, I think, this week is if these guys can make some putts, because I'm really targeting those solid tee to green guys, some crafty scramblers, and he fits that bill.
Yeah, here's the thing about Dredge is I love some of the stats that are put out, and sometimes they're totally noise, and other times they're good. And one of the ones this week, Future Fantasy Josh Culp, and I'm sure you've seen him on Twitter. The Future Fantasy is his Twitter handle. He puts out some really good stuff, and this one was he observed the weak fields at these Euro Tour events, and this is one of the weaker ones. I mean, normally we get at least somebody in the top 50 in the world at one of these events, and we don't have any. So he analyzed these weaker fields and the hard courses and a few other things, and Dredge was one of the names that popped up 3 times out of the 5 statistics as, playing well against these weak fields, playing well against in hard courses. So that's interesting. At 7,300, it was like, all right, well, he's checking a few boxes. We got to play some of these guys in this area. Ranked 13th in the field in tee to green. So, yeah, I certainly don't see a problem with him. There's another guy right above him. I wanted to tell you, I know one pronunciation. It's the only one I know. It's Richard Sterney. It's
Sterney.
Yeah, Sterney.
Okay.
I believe they pronounce the E at the end of it. Josh Geary, he only has 8 rounds accumulated. I know that probably, again, that's one of the things that I put on there on the model this week. But he's ranked 6th in tee to green. And when you include those, his driving accuracy is 35th in those starts. No one's going to go to him because he's literally played like twice all year.
Yeah, I don't know who this person is.
Yeah, is it maybe something in the 2 starts that he has played, he's gained on average just about 2 strokes total. So he's played well in the 2 starts. Nothing to really go off of other than he made the cut here last year.
No, and you're going to have to listen. I mean, this is something where most people are flying blind. So if you have a team that's 6 guys that everyone knows, you're going to probably be duped. You're going to try to take a one-off here and there. And that's a guy, like I said, from New Zealand, obviously. Looked good in Kenya, apparently. I don't know much about him. The stats aren't going to bear out. But if you're going to have to buy low on someone and kind of try to be a step ahead. So this is the range where I'm doing that. I have some flyers on a couple other guys that we really haven't mentioned. The one guy, and this is more of a question, I'm not even saying that I like him, but someone who caught my eye is a guy named Victor Perez. He's in the low 7s, playing really well, cooled off a bit, but the ball striking stats really stood out. I don't know much about him. Did he make your player pool?
Yes, he did, because I saw that he's ranked 20th in strokes gained tee to green in this field. And for someone that's obviously has statistically, and he's had 30 rounds, which is obviously actually one of the higher amounts. He's a guy that, 4th off the tee. So obviously he's 43rd in accuracy and 92nd in distance. So that is something you like to see. He did make my player pool this week at 7,200. A guy right above him that he is definitely, we've seen him a couple of times in WGC events, is Dean Burmester. He's 32nd in the field. And, the bomber, absolute bomber, which concerns me if it's not under control. He really can't putt. Really, really can't putt. He's the worst in the field other than Matthew Southgate, it looks like, in that statistic. So I like Burmester. Victor Perez, I'm definitely in on as well in that area. I'm seeing if we forgot anybody. Aaron Rye is a name that he's won earlier in the year. He'll probably be popular. What about Otegi? I've seen his name quite a bit. Anything on Otegi that you want to chime in on, or is he not in play this week for you?
I didn't get there. It's one of those things. If I was making more teams, maybe he would have caught a piece. But I tried to make a priority list. And for me, he's just a guy. I didn't really think he burns me too many times if I don't have any.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think he's overly owned. How about a guy that played really well here last year? Came in 3rd, Form has been off a little bit. Andrea Pavan, a guy that I played a couple of times last year when I played over here, he'll probably make my player pool. Did he make yours?
He did. I actually have him on one of my key teams. He's a guy. I say this often, especially when we get to lower salary players. I'd rather have a guy that does one thing extraordinary than someone who's
Great
just
point.
like pretty below average across the board. And he is a world class iron player. And for a field like this, he can really strike the ball. Now, the rest of his game is not up to par, but I'll live with that because if he gets going with the irons, he is a legitimate threat in any type of field like this.
Yeah, and the next guy I want to bring up, it's funny because we've seen like at Erin Hills, right? We saw Brian Harman, who is notoriously one of the shortest players on the PGA Tour, go out and compete. So there are those guys that take a longer course and are just able to hit those hybrids and hit those longer irons into the greens and manage and get around. One of those golfers that we've seen do that actually on a much bigger stage than this has been Soren Kelton, the Danish guy from Denmark there, and he is ranked 244th in driving distance on the European Tour. So I think there's only like 255 that they measure or something like that. However, he's ranked 6th in the field on approaches. In strokes gained, 22nd in tee to green when you add in the 37th from around the green. It's really not bad. 7K for a guy that, he's still ranked, relatively high. I'm not sure. Did you get there this week, 7K? Or is the length just really crushing you?
I may have a sliver. The length, and I don't want to put him with Steve Stricker, but there's just an element of where I'm not sure how high that ceiling is for him anymore. He's an incredible player in really tough conditions. We've seen him battle time and time again. And he a couple years ago, certainly I think maybe more in his prime, really good player that a lot of people may have never heard of. I'm more apt in a field like this to take some of the younger, unknown, kind of more aggressive players, just because, as we always talk about, DraftKings scoring, you want some birdies on those cards.
All right, I got one of those guys exactly for you now. So I think I brought up Luke List earlier. I take everything back.
I don't know if that's me or you.
Man down.
Him or me?
Him, I guess.
See, he broke it with Luke List. Sad state of affairs here. Well, I'll give my. Am I still on, Josh?
Yes, you are.
All right. Well, I'm going to just ramble for a bit. I only had a couple more plays, so it was good timing. Xander Lombard, 6,600, South African, extremely aggressive. When we're talking about sub 7K guys, we're not going to be. Yeah, I was just saying. Luke List killed us.
Luke List came back to haunt, but here's the guy. This guy, and he's definitely a little bit more outspoken than Luke List. But when you look at his stats, it's like it literally would be 156th in the field in putting, and there's 156 golfers in it. Ready? But you ready for this? 8th off the tee, 24th on approach, 8th around the green, 7th in tee to green. And I'm talking about Guido Migliozzi. And he just won down in Kenya. And if you haven't seen his 18th hole, it's pretty cool. He chest bumps himself. It's pretty freaking great. 6,900 exactly goes to what you were just saying before my internet decided it was like, we don't like you anymore. Guy, he can make birdies. No doubt about it. He's got tremendous upside. There's 2 more guys down here that I like as well that can make birdies in a bunches. But did you see yourself going to Guido this week?
He's someone, when you dropped off, I was saying Xander Lombard is, and I see him very similar to Guido. They're just both very talented. Consistency is not going to be there. We're going to see stretches from both of them where it's real bad. Xander, we've seen that a little more, just because he's got more experience. I like them as high upside GPP plays, though. There's no doubt that these are the type of guys in weaker Euro fields. I mean, Guido just did this in Kenya. I'm more apt to go to Xander, to be honest, but sub 7K, obviously A, all you're asking is make the cut, and B, if you can get someone who somehow can grab some placement points, man, what a bonus that is.
Sure is. And another guy that if he can grab some placement points, get into the weekend, he's averaging 4.5 birdies per round, which actually is the most in the field. And might be second, actually. But anyways, it's Lassie Jensen.
I love that guy. Where is
I don't know. Tell me about him. I love playing him too, but tell me about this guy.
I think let me click on his thing before I sound like an idiot. I think he's from Denmark. I want to say Denmark. Yeah.
He's from Denmark.
He's someone I've played over the years here and there. And again, I think what we're talking about is the same concepts. He can get crazy hot, streaks, very aggressive. If it goes bad, it goes really bad. You could wake up tomorrow and he could be 7 over, and that's what you get in Europe. But when I'm looking for sub 7K guys, I want to at least know that they have that ceiling. And Lassie, he has that ceiling. There's no doubt about it.
He's been on the Nordic Golf League. Ask me where he's been.
Sure. Why wouldn't he be up there?
He's been knocking out top 15s at the Nordic Golf League.
Jesus. You know what? Hey, I'll take it. I'd rather have him be in form. And when we do see, like I said, he's only played, I see a 1-for-1 here. But the guy, compared to some of the people next to him, I actually feel more comfortable with him. And I know I don't feel comfortable with any of them, but you're going to have to do that, especially to bring it back to the top. If you're starting with Juice and another top-end guy, these are the type of guys you're finishing with.
Definitely. And there's a guy that is in this area that I will say I'm very interested in. He's had I would say probably a little bit surprising of a year to some. It's a guy, Robert McIntyre. Guy's made 9 of 10 cuts. He went to McNeese State, so played over here and played against the big boys. McNeese's in the Division I school. It's not, in the SEC or anything. But anyways, so he's a rookie. He's from Scotland, 22 years old. He's a southpaw, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But like I said, string of cuts. He's only missed the cut at the ISPS Honda Vic Open this year on the European Tour. So going pretty good. Best finish was in Kenya, 17th, 31st, 45th, 20th. So it's kind of in that middle round. But if you're looking for a guy to get you through the cut, 6,900. He was actually featured on the European Tour this week. They kind of followed him around. He still lives with his mom and dad in Scotland. It's kind of an interesting story. But thought about him a little bit this week. Also going down a little bit, Scott Vincent is the name I've seen thrown around. How about you? Anybody in that area? I got a couple other guys a little bit lower, but how about you?
Yeah, McIntyre is someone. This is where you're not going to have a full story. I don't know much about the guy. He's making cuts, and that's more than you can say for a lot of these guys. So, last man in. If you're saying, hey, I want someone who's just going to make this cut, he's probably towards the top of that list. I don't have a ton much else. The one other guy I'll mention, I believe we saw him stateside, and he's really cheap, is John Catlin. Not really busting through in terms of, the opposite of someone who we related to Taylor Gooch, where it's like miscuts and top-end finishes. He's making a bunch of cuts. He's not really getting in contention. This is a perfect field for him, though, to play better. He's a talented guy, and he's only 6,300. I thought that was a little much.
Well, he's 145 official World Golf ranked, and he's, priced with guys that are in like 600 and 700. Yes. I don't know why they did this, maybe form a little bit. But here's a guy that people legitimately played for 6,500 at the Waste Management Phoenix Open. We're talking about a field that Ricky Fowler would beat this field by about 14 probably this week. So not that much, but a couple other names that I did go to down here. You have to play Catlin. If you're playing like a $300 and you're playing one or two, it's almost like a must because I feel like everyone's going to want to go to him with that. When they see that OWGR and the odds for somebody down there, he's 201 and he's priced with 400 to 1 guy. So obviously he'll stick out. Couple other guys that I like. Austin Connolly, I've been playing him for a couple of years. He had that good finish at the British Open, and that's about it. Andrew Dote, 15th in the field in strokes gained tee to green, 147th in putting, so you know exactly what his game is. And let's see. There was one other name I just saw. Hurley Long.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring up your boy. I'm crafting this guy your boy already.
Really? Why? Tell me about him. All
Well,
right.
I believe I don't know much about him. I think I want to say Texas Tech. I read something about him, and he's been beating up on the Challenge Tour. Obviously, there's a step up for him, but
Texas Tech.
maybe,
Yeah, he's a
yeah.
Texas Tech guy. Yeah.
So another, we're going to see a lot of those kids, and some, it's very difficult, especially for me, because I'm not super tuned into all of these guys. But a lot of these guys, they have experience playing against some really good players over here in college. They go to Europe, and we see. But this guy's playing good golf. There's no doubt about it. So interesting name for sure.
Yeah, this is what tour is this? The Pro Golf Tour. What is that?
Sounds made up, but
He's playing in it.
yeah,
and he
more
hasn't
power to him. Get it.
he hasn't finished outside of the top 11 since the Open Prestigia, whatever. I don't even know how he's in this field. Honestly,
No, I have no idea.
unless he got a sponsor's exemption. Again, this is the type of information that's a little bit harder to find. Unless the Pro Golf Tour, which truthfully, I don't think I've ever heard of the Pro Golf Tour
tournament. Yeah, that's quite a name. I mean, again, that's a classic question of, would you rather have a guy who's dominating awful competition, or would you rather have a guy who's been playing against better Euro fields and missing the cut? To me, I'm more apt to take the guy that's in better form, to be honest, and maybe has that higher ceiling.
All right, here it is. I'm on the Pro Golf Tour's website.
You can get those viruses.
He is third in the order of merit in this, behind Alan John and Moritz Lampart. They're not in the field, right?
No, those aren't. That's some Westworld stuff right there. Those are not real.
Those aren't real people.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe they're watching. If they are, hit that like button. But this is, again, my basically to wrap
this
up.
This is like,
you're going to have players that have unknown. If you're putting together a puzzle and each recent form is a piece, course history is a piece, stats are a piece, you're not going to have full puzzles with these guys.
No chance.
So you got to just take the pieces that you can find and base it off what you feel most comfortable with. Everyone is in the same boat for the most part. And that's really what I tried to do. I based off where I think I can get in some leverage and took my shots there, and we'll see where the chips fall.
Yeah, one more name. He has played 6 rounds, which is probably 2 tournaments, 1 made cut, 1 miscut on the tour this year, but he's ranked 3rd in driving distance in those. So either A, he got really lucky, or B, that's literally all he's got in his game. 6,200, it's Jonathan Thompson, not Tom, it's Thompson. He played here last year and made the cut. One more name, Matteo Manazzaro. He's min-price. He's made the cut all 3 years here. The guy had so much talent out of Italy, but has just really, his game has just totally tanked here. It's so bad. But I thought I'd bring those 2 names up. They may get in one or two lineups for myself. But other than that, here's the thing. Again, we've brought up a lot. If you don't get 6 of 6, you're definitely not dead in Euro. That's for darn sure. Shot with no shot tracker. You can download the European Tour app on your phone. I have, and I've done it. But literally, just check it every 15 minutes because it's not worth it to check in between it. Like if you're sweating a guy on a hole, literally it will take them 15 minutes to update that score. So just be prepared for that. Yeah, just be prepared for that. Coverage. I wanted to just bring up coverage really quick if anybody hadn't looked at it yet or whatnot. Thursday. So tomorrow morning we'll get 6:30 to 8:30 in the morning, and then 10:30 to 1:30 to finish off that second night. Again, 2:30 lock time. So that'll get the first wave, the end of the first wave and the start of the second wave. Friday, same schedule except they end at 12 instead of 1:30. And then nice on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 12:30 both days. 4.5 hours of coverage. The coverage is 10 times better. Maybe it's just the announcers are better.
I love the announcers.
But the announcers, when you wake up on Sunday morning and you make your breakfast and have your tea with breakfast, it's great. I mean, I just love listening to the guys. So if you haven't done it, enjoy it on Sunday and enjoy the change of pace. You can download the app, like I said, but it's not that great.
No, and that's what this week is. It's a change of pace. If you're thinking in a long-term view, you're going to get kind of to see some guys that a handful of them will probably be relevant on the PGA Tour long term. Some of these guys have some talent, and it is always nice to see them kind of in their earlier stages. So it'll be fun. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, I think if you're interested in Zurich at all, you can maybe say something. I've personally, there's not too much on the betting side. I guess I'd be interested in like Joel Damon and Brandon Harkins, who I know both can get really hot, but I've got really nothing to say about it.
Me neither, to be honest. I love checking out the pairings. I think it's pretty funny to see who plays with who. I might take some steps for fun, but I didn't really. I think there's more value on the Euro side this week. So on that note, we'll get out of here. Obviously, as we always say, if you haven't signed up, come on in. We have so much stuff. Jason's writing a ton of articles, not just for the main slates. Weekend golf, I have my articles. We have models, projections, and that's just for golf. We have obviously all the other sports already going with playoffs, and baseball's just getting underway. So we'll be back next week with shot tracker type tournaments with the PGA Tour, and majors are coming fast and furious. This new schedule,
3 weeks,
right around the corner. So good luck, everyone. Europe golf, and we will see you next week.